isn't this just fantastic? Captain's Log, Subdate 21211.3. I've taken the decision to increase the force field around the crumble mold to level 2. This effectively treats Ensign Bork's quarters like a closed-off terrarium. Much fun. At the expense of Ensign Bork. Before we start this video, I'd like to say something that is important for this video. Context matters. When it comes to a subject, it always matters. Of course it does. Yes, many don't agree with this. I'm very much aware many of you will tell me that. But I treat it as important. I also believe criticism matters. Because nobody should be free of it. We all make mistakes. And we should all be called out as such for that. 5 years ago, a little longer actually, there was an event called Gamergate. The premise was games journalists sucked. That is the massive oversimplification of just how bad they were. Gamers, and YouTube commentators, many of whom were in fact gamers, rightly called out a plethora of games journalists and media outlets for utterly failing in their duties. When it came to mainstream media, they portrayed Gamergate and those involved as nothing more than domestic terrorists. That is also an oversimplification. But it was agreed eventually Gamergate was a consumer movement, something which you did not hear from mainstream media. There is, has, and will always be a level of entitlement and arrogance from journalists in any field, because they believe that they are the authoritative voice, akin to what YouTube has recently done in their TOS, which I'll address in This Week at Twitter tomorrow. Because of that, when they receive criticism, they seem to rally. Now, I mention the gaming community because recently a games journalist made a rather poor review of a game. In doing so, they showed they had not used many of the features that are in the new game, which were rightly called out by a YouTuber whose channel has just hit 1 million subscribers. Congratulations. This particular channel, I'm not entirely sure if I can say his name without this video being demonetized. So for the rest of this video, I'm going to call him the most creative name I can think of, Beardy McBeardface. For those who don't know who Beardy McBeardface is, he is arguably one of the most polarizing characters on YouTube. One of the, not the most. Most notably for a controversy surrounding him getting banned by Wizards of the Coast, because they're dicks, and their card quality is subpar, but that wasn't why he got banned. He rose to prominence on a channel called Unsleeved Media, before starting another channel called The Half-a-Ring. Did that get me demonetized? And did I need my sarcasm sign for that? On his channel, he mostly does social commentary. He does have very strong opinions on many subjects, which does mean that regular buzzwords that have literally no meaning anymore are thrown at him, which in truth, because he's still around, have about as much effect as Magikarp's Splash. He is a very prolific worker who has a job outside of YouTube, which is impressive for the amount of content he produces. I mention polarizing for a number of reasons, none of which matter really. But as context does matter, it's because he's a very strong-opinioned person. He recently made a video called Terrible Cyberpunk 2077 Review Busted. She didn't even play the game. GameSpot is a complete joke. And tweeted this out. I, by the way, had not seen this until I started seeing in my timeline all the replies he was getting. I've made a lot of videos recently about people not being able to take criticism. Apparently, he struck a nerve. You could argue he didn't take criticism either, but actually he did. And in the process got free content. Can't hate the player for that one. Within the first 2 minutes of Beardy McBeardface's video, he points out a number of flaws within Callie's review, along with a previous review she gave when it came to a Pokemon game, I believe Sapphire. As a bit of a Pokemon nerd, when someone complains about all the water in Pokemon Sapphire, it tells me you failed fundamentally to understand the story between the two legendary Pokemon in that particular game. Although technically there's 3, Rayquaza doesn't feature that much until right at the end when you can just catch him. Or you can just get Emerald and catch Rayquaza that way as the main legendary. Understandably, many games journalists though saw his video because they all hate watch him and have a hate boner for Beardy McBeardface. And so they let their opinions be known. We have Alessandro Fileri from GameSpot, much like Callie, saying being a games journalist in 2020 has had us dealing with significant hatred from an irrational audience. You mean the gamers who are critical of what you say? Okay. Beardy McBeardface is an instigator. Well, that's one word for it. And he's been responsible for bringing that ire to people like Callie for years. From the depths of my soul. Well, you should buy him dinner first before you do that. If you guys did your job properly and played the games thoroughly, to then review the game critically from a stance of I've used all the features, perhaps, Alessandro, you'd have a leg to stand on. To another of GameSpot's top-notch journalists. This loser spends his days tearing down others to compensate for his inability to create anything meaningful to put out into the world. Doesn't he work in advertising? We have to watch him bring undue mental harm to people that are our peers and friends. Thought-terminating cliche. Gotcha. People that are just doing their job. Badly. Please report him. That's nice. His victims work hard. Apparently not. They hold themselves to rigorous standards. Apparently not. They agonize over each other word, written or spoken. Apparently not. He does venomous videos inviting viewers to harass others. In fact, he actively tells people not to. That's one thing I have to credit Beardy McBeardface for. He still holds on to standards that I hold on to myself. They are very crucial standards. There are many commentators who will actively say, yeah, I'm okay with bullying. He's not one of them. Another GameSpot journalist, by the way. Lucy O'Brien, another games journalist, and I would have told you for which organisation, but as it turns out, even though I've had no interaction with her, random block of the week, Lucy O'Brien. I have no idea what I've done to incur your ire. I assume a bot block. F you horrific constant liar. I'm guessing you didn't watch the video. Next we go to Zachary Ryan for IGN. This is targeted harassment, and you should be ashamed of yourself. Also do 30 minutes of homework, you miserable turd. I'll give him some credit, at least his was slightly creative. My favourite response to the Quartering's tweet, which has his video, was from Brian Altano. I just saw my doctor, with all the emojis that the Quartering uses. He said I have gout and other weird pirate diseases, and that making 85 videos about the same woman is deranged behaviour, and that I am basically a walking above-ground pool of a man. Watch this video to assist with my rodent infestation bills. I can't really criticise this because it's actually quite funny. I'll give him some credit. He didn't just jump on a bandwagon and throw abuse. He came up with something. Go follow Brian Altano and don't give him stick. With regards to those who are journalists within the games industry who criticised Beardy McBeardface, you yourselves claim to be held to a high standard, but when it comes to receiving criticism, your response is, her der der, all the expletives. That is much professional from all of you. It tells me you lack the ability to introspect. Brian Altano raises a point about doing videos on the same person over and over again. I can fully understand the position many would have, that if you make more than one video on somebody, then chances are you are a little bit obsessed. However, you would have to go and find the relevant parts where that person has attacked them for being who they are instead of what they have done. Instead of just saying, I saw all these videos with this person's face on or their name in the title, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and up to 85. Context here matters. Games journalists, much like many mainstream journalists, still hold on to this arrogant belief they are the authority when it comes to, and then insert their specialized field. They are anything but that, and their lack of ability to take any criticism is astonishing. They united over this, and in turn, one of the major people that won in this was Beardy McBeardface, because he made a response to all of this, didn't he? It was a banger. Many of you watching may not like Beardy McBeardface, but in this context, the games journalists showed themselves to be utterly useless. And since people have been waiting for far too long for Cyberpunk 2077, there is going to be flaws, faults, and criticism, not least because it took so long and they rushed it after having already said they'd delay it till next year. And if you're going to review a product only to use some of the features to then complain about all the features. Perhaps your career shouldn't be in reviewing, because it kind of defeated the point, didn't it?